Virginia Opera opened its new season September 29th with Bizet's opera The Pearl Fishers. There was an appreciative audience for the story of two friends who fall in love with the same woman and fall out over her, but a number of problems marred the production. The opera's one big aria, Au fond du temple saint, is sung in the very first act. Where do you go from there? Now, it really is a gorgeous duet for tenor and baritone. For many years, the most requested piece of music at WHRO. Yet, while it's nice to hear its melody repeated instrumentally later, and again, and then reprised in the last act, there's a fine line between, oh good, here comes that song again, and oh God, here comes that song again. Then there's that red scrim, which also appeared again and again and again. Crucial actions taking place in front of it lost impact by being visually divorced from everything else. Merrily Murray Walsh's costumes were a problem. They're very elaborately printed and put together, but the tiny details couldn't be seen even from mid-orchestra, so that almost everyone in the large chorus of villagers seemed fairly drab and vaguely Muslim, which was rather odd since their god is Hindu. The women had nearly identical shoulder bags like Perney's carry sacks, something to hold the flower petals they were always strewing. Their newly elected chief, Zurga, needed a turquoise scarf around his neck to distinguish him from the other villagers. Without it, he was hard to pick out. Not good planning for a lead role. The light teal tunic of Zurga's friend and romantic rival Nadir was much easier to spot. Well, he is the tenor. The footwear resembled upscale surfer-type flip-flops, with heel straps so they could walk around on the steeply raked stage without making those annoying little flappy sounds. You couldn't miss the temple priestess, Layla, of whom both men are enamored. She appeared first in a gauzy, bright red gown ornamented in gold with a veil to match, sort of a blazing burqa. Later, she wore something less all-encompassing, though elaborately patterned, and still red, with a filmy teal scarf that got put to use as a blanket. Excuse me? At least she had nice sandals. Layla was the temple priestess, sworn to remain veiled and pray for the villagers' safety when they went out to dive for pearls. But there was no temple. She sat on the dock, which apparently was supposed to be a rock at that point, like a Ceylonese version of Denmark's Little Mermaid. Well, we think it was a dock. It seemed to move around. Actually, it might have been best to turn off the supertitles so that the incongruous gaps between the libretto and what was actually going on stage would have been less glaring. According to the libretto, Layla arrived in a canoe, but there was only a very abstract sailing ship at the back of the set. The chorus sang of dawn and sunshine, but the sky remained black. The high priest sang, "Listen to the festive sounds," while the villagers were silently getting ready to stone Nadir. And they were aiming at the audience. The opera has long stretches of lovely music with zero action. Director Tazewell Thompson tried to move things along with dancers and processions strewing flowers and so forth, but one wonders why he separated the singers in every duet. The well-prepared chorus sounded wonderful, but physically it was pretty static. Choreographer Matt Ferraro's tribal dances ranged from exaggerated quasi-Balinese marching to a sort of sumo light wrestling in MC Hammer pants to a low-to-the-ground danse sauvage that could be described as Pilobolus, the very early years. Happily, however, the singers were terrific. Heather Buck, who was so riveting as the princess in last season's Orphée, was a lovely Layla, especially in the pretty "O Dieu Brahma" at the end of Act 1, full of coloratura runs and trills, and her "I Can Sleep" aria in the second act. Tenor Chad Johnson had ardor and passion as Nadir, especially in "I Hear as in a Dream," reflecting on his love for the forbidden priestess. As the chief, Zurga, baritone David Pershaw swallowed his low notes a bit in the first act, but like the others, his voice got richer and warmer act by act. The weather had suddenly changed, which may have affected the singing. Purcell gave everything he had to his powerful second act aria O Nadir, in which he remembers his friendship for Nadir and his sense of betrayal. Zerga's death scene was played out in front of the scrim, unfortunate staging that left Purcell just hanging out to dry. Nathan Stark had little to do as Nurabad, the high priest, but his portentous bass invested the role with dignity and strength. Ann Manson conducted Virginia Symphony players with grace and sensitivity. From the other side of the Footlights, I'm M.D. Ridge.